Shwmai, croeso, hello and welcome to the Bluebirds Nest, episode 61, and I'm really pleased to be joined by our number 10 for this week's chat, a man who got us off to a flyer in last week's 5-0 win away at Carmarthen Town in the Nathaniel MG Cup with his 2 goals, but as you can see, it's Mr. Dan Hawkins. Welcome to the Nest, Dan.
Thank you very much for having me, right?
Yeah, I've been thinking about who's going to be the first player of the season, and you've started so well. I thought I'll pop the question to you on the weekend and get you on. But mate, quite the career, an incredible career path to go through on this episode. Also, your new role off the field at Haverfordwest County, and it's been a while, but I'm rolling out my dream Bluebird question again later on. But let's start at the beginning then. So, early age, and Dan, where did football start for you?
So I was at Mumbles Rangers to begin with. I was like 8 at the time. I wasn't actually at grassroots for that long, but yeah, I did play rugby until like 8. And well, actually, what happened is I was 7 and I was playing with like the under-9s, and then the rugby coach was like, "Oh, you're gonna have to play with your own age now because we're going into contact." And I was just a little cocky kid, like, "Oh, well, screw that! I'm not playing with my own age. I'm just gonna go play football instead." And so then someone who I knew just spoke to Mumbles Rangers. Went in there and I went there and I just found that like I didn't even know like Swans Academy or anything was a thing, and I was just there playing, like having fun, thinking, "Oh, this just sound, does it get any better than Mumbles Rangers?" I was like, because I was just running through people having a good time, thinking that like there wasn't like anything above that level. And so then I went there. As I just spoke to you before, I basically then it got to the awards evening and I was just expecting little 8-year-old me just waiting for a little build up of he's done this well this year, he's done this, and I was just almost out of my seat ready to go receive my Player of the Year award. And then they go call someone else's name, and I was like, well, that's just not right. I am fuming. The manager didn't really like me. I never passed. His son used to play with us, and I never passed to him. And so basically I then kicked up a fuss, went home, said I'm not playing for them next season. Player of the Year, and went to a team then called Bishopston. And then within a couple of weeks, this was what I would have been an under-9. And then it must have been just before halfway through the under-9 season, I found out that Swansea was a thing. And so I was at a football camp actually once. Gosh, it's all coming back to me. This is a long time ago, right? I was at a football camp down in my local park, and a Cardiff scout went up to my mum and was like, "Is that your son? Can we bring him in?" So I went to Cardiff for literally a week. I was like, "Oh, turns out there is something above this level." Went to Cardiff for a week, and then after that week, Swansea then also came up to me and were like, "Oh, well, we want to sign Dan." And so then I obviously chose Swansea. It was closer to home. Yeah. And at that point, it was like Swans Development. And then basically I got offered a trial with Swans Development. But then 2 weeks into the Swans Development trial, we played the Academy. And then the Academy were like, "Oh, now we want to take you on trial." So I just went up then and then eventually went to the Academy. What was it, halfway through the under-9 season? So I was 8. And then, successful 6-week trial. And then I was at Swans for like 8 years, was it? 8 years, I think?
Yeah, a long time in the academy there, where you first came across Mr. Pennock and Mr. Gary Richards. When were your first interactions with both of those then?
I'd probably say I more interacted, I think, with Tony at Swans because his son, Alex, was my age. So Tony knew quite a lot of us. Yeah. So, for instance, like Kai Whitmore was obviously our age, Alric, who's obviously here now, and then other boys like Dan Williams, Cam Evans, all of those boys were there. And so, because obviously Alex played with us, it meant that Tony came and watched our games. If that makes sense. But obviously, at the time, Tony is academy manager. We were just like the under 9s, under 10s, under 11s, or whatever. Whenever he came to watch, we were like, "Oh, it's the academy." And so in all fairness, it was good because with Alex playing for us, he kind of got to know us as more Alex's teammates than anything, if that makes sense. But obviously in doing so, it meant that he kind of knew us quite well, if that makes sense. In terms of Waggy then, in all fairness, the whole time I was at Swans, Waggy was with the 21, so I didn't actually come into that much contact with Waggy because I was only at Swans till 16. And so obviously I came into contact with him a couple of times, but I wouldn't say I actually had many interactions with Waggy really when I was at Swans, but he was more he was like the one you looked up to, Tony and Waggy when I was a kid at Swans, like the big bosses. Until Tony left when I was about 13 to go to Hull, but yeah.
You mentioned Hull there then, and obviously you left after about 8 years with the Swans. You went up north as well, and you're one of quite a few young Swans who ended up at Hull to further develop. Obviously spoken to Rio in particular in a previous episode. Pretty young age to be going up to the northeast of England on your own. How was that?
Yeah, well, to be fair, I always say it, but I think the best thing that ever happened to me was probably leaving Swans and getting out of that sort of like comfort zone. And yeah, I think I kind of got to a point in Swans like the past 2 years. I want really like, I don't know, I want like being me in football, if that makes sense. And we were Cat 1 and everything. And so as much as that was like an amazing thing for us, it also meant that like they were bringing in, like we had a squad of, I think at scholar age. So when I left, they had a squad of almost like 30 odd of under 18s, because obviously at Cat 1, they have the facilities to accommodate that.
Yeah.
And it meant like when I went to, so obviously I left like Swans and I had I had interest from Coventry. So Coventry offered me contract. Chef Wednesday wanted me to go up there for like, they were calling me back because they were like, we want him back in. Burnley had offered me stuff. And then because I always had Hull in the back of my mind because Tony and obviously John Beale at the time, that's how so many of us went up there, because they were like the connection for us. And so I remember when like Coventry offered me that contract, I literally stalled them for about 2 months, which like, you know, in hindsight, who knows, I may have, if I get Coventry, who knows, but obviously I chose that path. And yeah, went up to Hull because of John and Tony. I knew all along that when I was doing all these other things and getting offered these other contracts, that Hull was the one I wanted. And when I went up there, and like I don't really like the big city. Like I kind of like Swansea because it's got like the city, but also it's got like I live down in Mumbles, and I quite like being out in nature, and I like the beaches and all that sort of stuff in the countryside. And what I found with Hull is that it was like similar sized city to Swansea, but there was also some like nice outskirts. Beaches, don't get me wrong, weren't the best. But like there was a place called like Beverley, and it was just like a cute little village. And so like you could enjoy the city of like the buzz of that. But then also you had so I stayed in like a place called Cottenham, which was just like a nice village outside. And so I really enjoyed my time at Hull. And obviously at Hull, whereas at Swansea I had like 30 scholars, we had 9 people my age, and then obviously 9 year above, which then made 18, because that's all you need really. At 18s, it's one fixture schedule. Whereas obviously I'd speak to some of the boys at Swans in Cat 1, as good as it is. Like Swans obviously had an amazing time at Cat 1. They made a load of players, as you know. Like the teams they had at Cat 1 were ridiculous. But what it also meant then is like, say players who they maybe weren't rating as much at the time or whatever. It honestly meant that some like boys my age didn't even play like a game in their first year as a scholar, because they'd be picking a squad to go. Whereas I played probably, I think in my first year, I probably played every single game in my set. As a first year scholar, I started pretty much every single game for the 18s, and then the same in the second year. So I accumulated, probably over 100 games just like playing in the you know what I mean, the 18s leagues or friendlies or 21s games. And so I found that, and it also opened my eyes as well to like the bigger picture of there's more outside of Swansea. And to be fair, I was so excited to move away. Like most people are scared to move away. I literally came out of my meeting and I was like, I can't wait. Like when I had these offers from, I was like so excited to just get out, because I had like Cardiff and Newport wanting me to go in, but I was like, that's too close to home. I want to just start somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Let's be further away. I kind of enjoy being away from home sometimes, and so I just thought, you know what, move away at 16. And I never really missed home. Really, I went back. I think that was one time. I only went back like once, and like the family. But nah, it was really good, and it was my age group was a very good age group, to be fair, at Hull.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like you've had an excellent time there at Hull. Not quite breaking into the first team for a debut, etc. But you soon had an exciting opportunity to go slightly west across the north of England to Gary Neville and Co.'s Salford City. Incredible. I've been looking. I knew about that, but I've been reading up on it in the last few days now. And what a spell! I think Paul Scholes was your gaffer for some part of your time there as well. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, my Salford's. Was like 2 years at Salford, but it was honestly, that probably felt like the longest 2 years of because of how much happened in those 2 years. So what happened is I left Hull, and so Warren Joyce, I don't know if you know Warren Joyce, but he took me into Salford, and he is like unbelievable. He changed like the way I see football in terms of like hard work. And so he was the Manchester United 21s manager under Sir Alex Ferguson. And so he brought through Pogba, Lingard, Rashford, all those names. And so he basically put together a squad in the first year at Salford of like players who he picked for a 21s team. It was the first year because it was the year that Salford went up into the League Two. So they started then building the foundations below that. And so they brought in like a B team sort of thing. And so Warren Joyce then like rigorously like vetted so many players and just picked like, I think there was probably about 12 of us who then eventually were the squad. And then obviously you'd have like first team players drop down for like friendly because we didn't have a game schedule. We just had like friendlies against, for instance, Man United every 6 weeks because Warren was so connected to them.
Yeah,
and so basically he changed like the way I view like football in terms of he was massive on heart. We used to come in, we played 90 minutes, say on a Saturday. So his motto is training should be the hard part, the game's then the easy part. And we'd have a game, play 90 minutes. The next day he'd get us in to do a 6-minute Cooper run to his saying was it gets the shit out the legs. No sports. And so yeah, that first year, so I stayed with Brandon Thompson-Sante, who just got moved to Coventry. Actually, plays in the Ghana national team now. Actually, he's gone on to do some very good things. But me and Brandon and a boy called Yanni, so we were 3 boys who Warren signed, and Yanni's playing in the A League now as well. But I don't know if you've seen the documentary where obviously it's centered around Brandon, and the apartment which didn't have a sofa was actually my apartment, and they'd always be coming in filming us playing FIFA, filming us doing all sorts. And I remember the day that the sofa came, and obviously everyone knows it from the Sky Sports thing because everyone knows Brandon from that, and it just rocked the week. I just woke up, Brandon comes over and he goes, Dan, we got a sofa. We all got a sofa just because Brandon's scoring goals in the first team.
Amazing.
But yeah, it was good. The first year I was mainly just with 21s, and then in the second year I broke in to the first team. So it was COVID year then, and so we went into lockdown from about obviously it was March, wasn't it? So obviously there was uncertainty then with our contracts. But Warren Joyce would like call me at 6 a.m. on like on a random day. I remember, so to this day now, it's actually mad. Like, I keep my phone on ringer because I remember the days that I'd keep my phone on ringer during lockdown, because if Warren Joyce calls you at 6 a.m. and you call him back at 6:01, he isn't picking up. You have to pick up the phone call he takes. Even like Gary Neville and that say about him, he is so like bad with his phone. He will literally... So he calls you at 6 a.m. and expects you to be, because he's out for a run at 6 a.m. or whatever, and he expects you to be awake. So I remember I'd like wake up at 6 to like a ringer, and I know for a fact my phone goes off at 6 a.m. It's Warren calling me, telling me I have to do a 5k run by 12 a.m. or something. I'll pick up and I'll have to be like, hello? As if I'm like awake, as if I'm on the schedule as him. And then he'll be like, right, Dan, can you tell all the boys to do a 5k run by 12 p.m. and get them all to send it to me? All right, cheers, bye. And that was that. That was us during lockdown. Yeah. And so, yeah, he was constantly reassuring us that we'll be okay. And so then when we came back in, we got put up in Gary Neville's hotel, the hotel football. Yeah. So all Salford players got put up in hotel football. So we had like a free room for a month in there, and we just had the whole hotel to ourselves because we had to be in a bubble for training. But when I went back in, like a lot of us didn't actually have contracts because they were being obviously very cautious then after lockdown and stuff of giving out contracts. And so it ended up being then that from Warren Joyce's first year, apart from obviously like Brandon and stuff, I was the only one then who actually got a pro contract to be with the first team, because they were only then going to give contract extensions to boys who were going to be with the first team. So Graham Alexander was actually the one who gave me my contract. So obviously Warren was in his ear saying like, make sure, like, give Dan a contract. He performed well, blah, blah, blah. So I was with the first team, and I earned myself a contract then with them in pre-season. So that was Graham Alexander gave me that contract. So then I was in with the first team for the second year. And then, what was it? So basically so in terms of the Paul Scholes thing then, so after 5 games, I think it was, Gary Neville sacked him, and we were unbeaten, but Gary, I think, just wanted us to play like a better brand of football. And obviously I don't know the ins and outs, but I just remember that we just wake up and Graham's been sacked, and then as the interim, Warren Joyce, I think Warren might have like meant to have been the interim and Scholes as the assistant, but Warren had COVID, and so Scholesy just came in as the gaffer, and so for like 6 weeks,
I was just working, I was up in the first team and just working under Paul Scholes and obviously Warren as assistant. And that was amazing. I remember like playing 2-touch and he used to join in the rondos and he'd just be flicking it around corners. I remember like in a 1-touch rondo, so like 2 in the middle, say like 8 on the outside, you'd have like everyone else like it's rolling in. And obviously, I don't know if you've seen the documentary how bobbly the pitch is. It's like a pigsty. And everyone else is like, it's bobbling up and they're like on their toes. He's just standing there like that casual, as if he's got 10 seconds every time the ball comes to him, flicking around the ball and stuff like that. And we're all just like, this is ridiculous. In shooting practice, he's zinging it out wide. Like, the Xavi Alonso clip?
Yeah.
He was just clipping them out wide, and you're just there like, how are we meant to follow on from that?
Yeah. He could have still done a job for the team then, probably.
He should have put himself in. He really should have, honestly. He was ridiculous. But then...
That year then, when you were with the first team, is that the year that you won the EFL Trophy? Or I think it was the Papa John's Trophy, I think it was.
Yeah. So Richie Wellens then came in. And under Richie, so under him, I probably played... To be fair, I was in squads and stuff. I didn't actually play that. I started 4 games in the Cup. I started an FA Cup 3rd round against Newport. Or was it 2nd round? But anyway, I started that. Brandon got sent off. So there was me helping Brandon in the 21s, giving him all these assists. And then he goes and gets a red card in the only game I start, and we end up losing. But yeah, so I started in that, and I played a few of the EFL games leading up to the final, and then ended up being in the squad for the final. I remember I was warming up on the side because it went to penalties and stuff, and I was thinking, Richie Wellens literally said to me, because it was him and Joycey in charge. Joycey was the assistant. And Rich was like, go get warm, like you might be coming on here. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would have been ridiculously nervous, mind.
Yeah.
But it was just a shame there was no fans because it was COVID. But yeah, basically I remember Brandon actually had a very good game and we ended up winning. And luckily with being in the squad, I've now got the medal at home and I was there celebrating as if I'd actually played. But a slight part of me felt like a bit of a fraud. But I guess I was in the squad. I'll take it. I'll take it at about 19 I was at the time. Got a medal from it. Just a shame there was no fans.
Definitely. You can see that in some of the footage that I've been watching on YouTube and that Wembley obviously was empty. It's such a shame because that would have had a good, tens of thousands there, I'm sure.
I think so. It was the year before's final. So we literally were holders for a day because...
That's right. I remember that.
So what happened is the year before, because it would have been around March time, I think. So it was literally scheduled for like the week before we went into lockdown, and Portsmouth had sold out their section. Oh. So like there would have been at least 45,000. Yeah, and then obviously we didn't quite sell out our section, being like a new up and coming club and all. But still, you're playing in front of at least 45,000, and that would have been that would have been insane. And then celebrating, obviously. Portsmouth fans probably would have buggered off mine, but Gary Neville and all were there. Like Chris Casper, Chris Casper was like one of the class of 92, so I was quite close to Chris Casper. Yeah. So it was Chris, Gary Neville, Ryan Giggs, all them were like there watching, but no fans, which was a shame.
Fantastic. Do you have any interactions? You mentioned there, and so how close do you get to those Man United legends and chat? As owners of the club.
I've seen. Paul Scholes probably one I spoke to the most, just simply because he was my manager. Like obviously I was like one-to-one. I had one-to-one like chats with him just about like stuff and him telling me about like if we were in the squad or whatever for the weekend. Yeah. But then Gary Neville was probably the most involved at that point. He was very, very involved like at those times because obviously they were going for getting into League One. Like the amount of players who. That was like part of the reason why it was tough for like us young lads to break in. Like these days now, there's a fair few more breaking in, but that's because at the time I was there, they were paying by far the biggest wages in the league. Yeah. So like, how can you justify? You have to be pretty sure if you're going to justify putting a 19, 20-year-old on the pitch ahead of. You're literally talking. There was probably about 20 to 25 like first team players who all think they should be starting, let alone even being in the squad. Yeah. And so I think like. Part of the reason why I didn't get as much game time, like I had a really good relationship with the first team players, and like obviously Brandon was with the first team, and like again as all players do, but like they say like a few of them would be like really surprised, like why aren't you getting a chance here? And, you got to take it with a pinch of salt because they're never going to say to you, "Oh, you or anything." You get a vibe for when they're being quite sincere with stuff.
Yeah,
and
yeah, they were all like, because when I was with them and stuff, and they'd always be like confused if like I wasn't in a squad or whatnot. And they were really good to me. Like ex-Prem players like Darren Gibson and all were there at the time. They were like, just keep doing your thing. And they were actually really, really good with me. But yeah, it was difficult because they were so involved. And if one player's not performing, it's not a case of right, chucking Dan. It's a case of right, we'll buy a new player then. Yeah. And so he was huge. Like he was hugely involved. They'd be at training and stuff quite a lot. But I didn't have that many, I didn't have any real interactions with Gary Neville one-to-one. But I do remember he liked one of my tweets once, and I thought it was a parody account. I remember we beat Rochdale in the cup, and I had quite a good game, actually. And Richie Wellens was like talking about me after the game in the post-match interview, saying, "Oh, like Dan's come in, like it's one of his first like proper starts, and like had a really good game, but it was a cup game." And I remember then I just, as you do on Twitter, you just like post, "Oh, great 2-1 win today." Yeah. And I just saw Gary Neville's like your tweet, and I thought, "Oh, what fan account's liking my thing now?" Yeah. I was like, "Oh, Gary Neville's actually like my tweet. What's going on here?" I think I did give him a follow, being a bit ahead of myself, thinking he might follow me back, but no, that didn't.
No, nothing like that.
I'll take the like.
Brilliant. I love that. I think everyone's going to be going to watch that documentary now and catching up with you in your couchless flat.
Yeah, the only thing is I wasn't actually in the documentary because when they came, they filmed Yanni and Brandon playing FIFA, so people don't associate that with me because I remember I literally remember them texting me saying, "Oh, they're coming round," and I was like away or something, I couldn't make it. Yeah. And then in the second year, actually, it's funny because in the first year, obviously Brandon was the big thing, and I remember in the second year because obviously I was the only player who got a contract with the first team, like from the previous year. I was being filmed non-stop in that hotel football in the hope that I'd play like have an impact because obviously you have to prep it early in case.
Tell me about it.
all those videos then probably got discarded when I didn't play as much as they hoped. But that's how I knew it was. They thought I'd maybe break in, and I have quite a good relationship with that guy who was filming. Like I speak to him sometimes, but yeah, it was because he actually said to me, I think he said afterwards, he's like at the end when I left Salford, he was like, "Oh, we would like you would have probably been like if things had worked out differently, there would have been a documentary which like would have been partly like a big part may have been about you if you'd broken in because it's just selling the club right. So it's a shame, but." Yeah, but ultimately I had to perform more on the pitch, score more goals.
You mentioned then your exit. On to the next chapter of your career. We'll go across the water to Ireland. Firstly, a season with Finn Harps, and then I think Damien Duff literally came calling for you for a move to Shelbourne, which, in fact, I think you were telling me saw you score the first goal with him as first team manager. So yeah, take us through your Irish adventure then.
I got a random phone call when I was literally out with, I think I was out with like Dan Williams and Cam Evans, and obviously Jack Evans as well, don't you? Yeah. I think I was literally down doing some pre-season training with them, and I go back to my car and I have an Irish number calling me, and I think, "Oh, right, what's this?" And I remember, so it was the first team, so Finn Harps, but I remember he's from Galway. He's called Ollie Horgan, and I remember picking up the phone call, and obviously at this point I've not been accustomed to the Irish accent, and I picked up the phone call and I was like, "Hello," and all I hear was just like gibberish at the other end of the phone. But then I got like little bits here and there. He just like said, "I'm from a team in the Irish Prem called Finn Harps." At this point, I didn't really know much about the Irish Prem. And he's like, "I'm from a team in Ireland called Finn Harps. So we'd love to get you over." But again, I literally said, he said, "You might not like understand my accent. I'm just going to text you what I've said." And I was like, "Right, brilliant. I'm not coming off." And so, yeah, he just randomly called me, said he'd watched me when I was at Hull and a bit when I was at Salford. And then he was like, "Look, we'd like love to get you over." And I remember then I caught a flight over to Belfast. And so Ollie Horgan himself then actually, so the manager of Finn Harps, came 2 hours across to pick me up and then drove me across and just showed me the place. I went over in the first time just to see like how it was, because it's so the first team was Finn Harps in Donegal, and it was very, very rural. It kind of reminds me of Haverfordwest, actually. It generally, I see similarities between them because it's like you only go to Finn Harps if you go into Finn Harps. Like it's out there. Like you don't go through it. It's you're either going there or you're not, and it's all very, very Irish. Like
traditional.
They're very just big culture people, and you have to kind of buy into the culture, or you'll probably soon get kicked out of their little town. And so, I went over, and as it happened that I went over for the second half of the season, because obviously I finished at Salford. It's summer seasons over there, so I signed as one of their summer signings for the second half of the season, because I think at the time they were fighting a bit of a relegation battle to stay in the top tier. And so he just signed a couple of us. There's another lad from England who he signed. A couple of us basically to just try get them over the line and keep them in the division. And so, I went over, and it ended up then being that we had a very, very good second half of the season. Finn Harps isn't one of the biggest Irish clubs. They're like a team who's happy to just be in and around the top flight. Because now they're in the second tier. They're not in the top tier anymore. But I honoured we ended up having a really, really good few months there. Thoroughly enjoyed it, honestly. As much as I say, I kind of bought into the culture, and when you buy into it, they're very welcoming, like the Irish. And so, I got made friends over there. Me, and obviously there was 5 of us living in they almost had it was like a B&B to ourselves. It was like a club B&B. So we just had like a B&B to ourselves. We all had our own little room in there. Okay. All just lads who are from here, there, and everywhere. A boy from Canada, a boy from And so we stayed in there, and ended up having we had a really good end to the season. But obviously a bit to Finn Harps' detriment, because then I don't know the stat exactly, but honestly, I think about 12 to 14. Honestly, I think it was 10, 12 of us left that season because we all got moves, which obviously leads on to then in literally the off-season, got a call from, firstly, they wanted to sign us back. So the manager flew over to come over and speak to me, and we'll have boys from England. And I was going to sign back with Finn Harps. They were good, and they were really good to me. They gave me a car and everything when I was over. Finn Harps, I can't thank them enough. They were amazing to me. I probably never actually had the chance to say, but they were actually so good to me, and they welcomed me in. They gave me a chance to play over in Ireland, which, as we know now, is a very, very good league. But then basically, I remember I woke up one morning, and I'd heard whispers that Shelbourne were a bit interested, because what happened is, they got promoted from the league below, but they're one of the big, big clubs in Ireland. And so what they'd done is they then hired Damien Duff, and Joey O'Brien was the assistant. And so what he did is he basically stripped out the dressing room and wanted to make the club his own. And so I remember 2 of the lads actually from Finn Harps ended up going there. They were the first 2 to sign. And I was thinking, gosh, when am I going to get Michael? Because I'd heard rumours that Chris Casper had actually texted me, who was at Salford, and he said, someone has been in touch on behalf of Damien Duff, basically vetting me, asking about me. Okay. And I was like, right, okay, surely the call's going to come, or the text's going to come at some point. So it didn't catch me out of the blue too much, because I was aware that they were interested to an extent, but obviously interest isn't anything until it's actually over the line. And so, I didn't sign back with Finn Harps, and I just thought, because Damien Duff texted me, and literally within 2 days I was sold. It's Damien Duff. He's won Premier Leagues. He's similar position to me. I thought I can learn so much from him. Again, he wasn't a proven manager or anything. I think he'd been assistant manager at Celtic, assistant manager at Ireland. And so technically he wasn't proven at first team level, but it's Damien Duff. I had more than enough faith that he'd have been extremely good. And he called me, and we talked about obviously stuff. But I was never not gonna sign, And I basically then signed for them. I was super, super excited. They're one of the top teams historically in Ireland. But obviously, unfortunately, then my knee decided no. Don't want to play ball, so it's a shame, but this is what it is. And I played 5 games, I think it was. Started the first game. I was literally so adamant starting the first game. It was on TV in front of. I think we played in front of 5. The stadium was sold out. I think it's 5,000 capacity, maybe 4,000 or 5,000. But I remember at Finn Harps we played in Taller as well, which was playing in front of 8,000-9,000, which was amazing. Yeah. So that was a really good experience. It was actually from that. So Joey O'Brien played for Shamrock Rovers the year before when I was at Finn Harps. And it turns out it was from when I played against Shamrock, I think he must have got in contact with Damien Duff because he knew full well, like they had signed their contracts to be in charge of Shelbourne prior to the season finishing before, because Shelbourne had won the league, like blitzed the league, like months before the season finished.
He was scouting and on the pitch.
He was playing Shamrock, obviously at the time top team in Ireland, and so we went there when they were doing the league winning. It was actually the game, if they beat us, they won the league. So obviously it was a sellout crowd at Tala. I think the capacity is probably about 8,000, and it was a sellout crowd. And basically, I remember I was actually fuming because I didn't start the game. I think I came on at half time because we were doing really bad. And I thought I was literally expecting to start, and I came on then. So I just thought, right, we're losing 2-0. I'm just going to go for it here. Yeah. And then that's what caught the eye of Joey O'Brien, because I was literally on Joey O'Brien's side. He was right side centre half, and I was like on the left. And so from that, Joey must have after the game text saying like, "Oh,
here's one.
Can we get this Dan Hawkins fella? He plays well. you check him out." Because I remember when Damien Duff called me, he said, "Look, I've watched all your games now." So just to make sure it wasn't just a fluke, he's like, "I've watched all your games at Finn Arps. I've asked a few people about you, and want to get you in," sort of thing.
Fantastic. Love that. You mentioned there briefly, obviously you had a bit of a challenging time with that injury. And then the Irish season obviously finishes in the autumn. They play obviously football across the summer there. A few weeks rest, and then an opportunity to link back up with Pennock and Richards at Haverfordwest County comes about then. So I remember your debut well. I remember you came in, very few times. I think you trained maybe once with the boys, and then came on against Abus. You scored on your debut. I remember I was behind the goal, and you slid in for your first goal, and it was like a 4-1 win that day. But
it was.
Ever since that, then I think you've just become a part of the furniture. Right across that phase too. Obviously into the playoffs before our own European adventure. You were one of the players who probably a bit more used to playing in those big stadiums, as you've said. But so how was Europe in its entirety for you? That experience, what was that like for you?
Oh, it's like you said, like obviously leaving, like having such a tough year the year before at Shelbourne, and like watching the boys have a really successful season. Like obviously Shelbourne now top of the Irish League, and Damien Duff's just taken them from strength to strength.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable. And we played in I know I said you on the bus the other day, but I missed out on a cup final where they played in front of 35,000. And I was just sat in the stands. I had my suit and everything. Like they suited and booted us, but I was sat there thinking, I remember the feeling in that dressing room, and I thought, I so badly want to get back to this someday, because the feeling, it can't be described. Like you got 35,000 people out there waiting, and the adrenaline, you could just see in the lads, and I'm just sat there with a brace on my knee thinking, this is awful. And basically in terms of coming here then, so I remember when I was injured, I obviously had Damien Duff gave me 2 weeks off to come home. And during that time, I remember I actually went, one of my mates played for Taff Wells, like one of my close mates. And it was, do you remember the cup game where Taff Wells?
Yeah.
So I actually went to that. Obviously, Tony knew I was in Ireland and stuff, but obviously I'm not sure if he kept up to date enough to know I was injured or whatnot. And so I remember coming to the game and just watching the game. And afterwards, I just ran into Tony in the car park, and obviously I was in my knee brace. Yeah. And so he was like, "Oh, what's happened to you, Dan?" And I think that then obviously must have stuck in his mind, because he obviously knew then that, right, okay, I'll keep an eye on maybe kept an eye on what I was up to, because knowing he knows football more than most of us, knowing that if you're injured, sometimes you fall out of favour, and there may not be that contract extension for you. And so I remember then it was obviously it must have been like you said, he texted me and just said, "Look, if you want to come down, just." At the beginning, he was like, "If you just want, even if you just wanted to come down for training, just get yourself fit or whatnot." But obviously, I kind of knew in the back of my mind that I wanted to, because obviously I know Tony Wagyu down here, and I kind of knew in the back of my mind that at the time my mum was in a bit of ill health, and I thought, you know what, going home for a year and just resetting myself. I've been away for 5-6 years. Might be worth doing, and obviously knowing Tony and Wagyu, it would be a really good place to do it. And then, like you said, it kind of couldn't have gone any better, because there was me joining, not knowing what it could become, and just thinking, right, okay, I'll play this season, hopefully have a good end to the season. And then people were talking, oh, there's a chance for Europe, and I was thinking,
what?
We finished 7th, and I was like, if we win 2 games here, we're in Europe. And obviously we won the 2 games, and I was like, whoa, the decision, it couldn't have gone any better, because you say,
coming out of like the Irish League, which, as you say, like you're playing in front of thousands every week, and it feels like, you know, like just proper like football where you're in front of fans, like that feeling you get when you score and you see people roaring your name, and I was like, to then come here, and it just seemed like I obviously thought like, oh gosh, I was like disappointed like leaving full-time football and all that, but then it almost just seemed like a seamless transition, because I was like, oh my gosh, but I've come here and now like the opportunity playing in Europe, and it's like, wow, like it couldn't have gone any better, if that makes sense. Like I still like the European experience was just like, when you talk about feeling like a proper footballer again, it's like, I mean, we got private jet, like we proper felt like a proper footballer. It was just unbelievable, like to have had all that disappointment of thinking, oh gosh, what's going to happen now with my career, you know, all that, and then to have this opportunity and for it to go how it went. Honestly, I couldn't have asked for it to have gone any better, and Europe was just amazing. Like I'm sure everyone says the exact same, and I'm just repeating what everyone said, but. To win that first game, I remember when we saw the draw, and I'm sure, like, we can all admit in saying it, we were like, "Oh my gosh, second highest coefficient!" Like, we'll enjoy the ride, I guess. Like, we'll give it our best. We want to try win, but ultimately the odds are against us, and so we just thought, right, just enjoy it and obviously go for the win. Like, we back ourselves as you always do. It's football, but you could never have foreseen what happened. Like, we knocking them out and then going to the Faroe Islands and just it being 2 games, not just one. And like, it wasn't just like we showed up just to take part. Like we caused an upset, and we were, everyone knew about us then. Like, it probably did the club real good as well. Didn't it? Like, it got us out there, like on the news and stuff. I remember sitting down to watch BBC, and I was like, oh, we're on the news.
I love it. I've got to pick up on a couple of highlights and perhaps lowlights for you across the European adventure. Of course, first, we'll start on a little bit of a low light. The penalty against Skandia, I thought from the sideline, the bravery you showed, I think, going up first, you know, in front of that big crowd, it wasn't rewarded. However, it didn't matter in the end, obviously. And I remember running over, you know, Zach saves that penalty. It just goes chaos, doesn't it? I remember running over to you and meeting you on the other side of the pitch. And just the relief on your face that we'd won, that must have been a crazy 10 minutes or so for you.
Oh, it was. I remember walking up for that pen, like, because the pressure, just knowing like what's on it. And I'll be the first to admit, I did not handle the pressure very well in that situation. Like, nothing can prepare you for. I mean, everyone says the same. Like, I've taken pens before and whatnot, but to have it on that scale and to potentially like taking them to pens, and if we didn't win, like, no one remembers. Like, even if you have a really good, but the winning, like, we had to win, and then it's just a statement. And I just knew going up to that, and when I missed, I was like, I was just within myself. I just everything around me just like went wow. I was just like in myself, so what on earth have I just done? And then obviously, luckily, we ended up winning Zach with his amazing pen saves, and like you said, so you can imagine from 5 minutes earlier being like, oh my gosh, if we lose here, I am just gonna be, I'm not gonna sleep for days. And then, so the relief was, I actually remember just the feeling. And I think I remember you like putting the camera in my face, and I was like, how the heck did I miss? But
almost word for word perfect there. I won't play the sound out what you actually said, but that's how the bleep did I just miss that? But you were, you know, it's togetherness, you know, and that was shown throughout that penalty shootout. You know, obviously there was a couple of other misses as well, but it didn't matter. So onwards we went, and I'll flip it now on the complete opposite. The home leg, the B36 fixture, your free kick. And I remember I was right behind it, you know, when I was filming, and obviously we had the Scorio cameras, multiple Scorio cameras that I was relying on for footage. So I was able to flip it to whether it was pens in the technical area, the substitute, and film the sort of alternative angles. And I remember holding my camera one way, but watching you take the free kick the other. Obviously gets on the end of Watty's head, and then obviously Forsey slams it home. Incredible scenes. And I hadn't watched the documentary for a long time, I'll be honest, but I watched it a couple of weeks ago in the off season, and forgotten how close you came to actually winning it for us later on. You had a really good couple of chances that I think on another day, this is a completely different conversation. But I remember you linked up well with Jack a couple of times and a couple of long ranges that really tested the keeper.
Oh, I honestly, I genuinely, I still think about those chances now because I remember it was obviously these European encounters, like they're so tactical and like you have to be so like cagey for a lot of it. Like you even saw like in games, like ultimately it's cagey until like you have to. Sometimes that's how the away games are. Even like Connor's Key game on Sunday, like it was so cagey until we score, and then all of a sudden it opens up and chances come for both teams because the whole dynamic just flips. And in that game, I literally remember it was so cagey. We scored that goal, and all of a sudden we know how good Zach is on pens. Like we'd happily take pens by that point. And I remember they scored. Was it? The pen was in the first half of extra time, was it?
First half.
Yeah, and so I remember for the second half of extra time, I just thought,
let's go for it.
Screw it. I'm just gonna because of how amazing the journey was. I was like, I don't want this to end here. And I remember just trying to get on the ball at every single possible opportunity to try and make something happen. Because I was just like, I just had it in my mind. I have to score here. I have to do something. I have to put it on someone's head. We have to try to score it. You just like literally like, squeaking at every moment, like, come on. And I remember I had like I was that one where Kai dribble pass, played it to me, I cut inside, I whipped it. I remember watching it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's going top corner. And then, to be fair, watching back the replay, it was a bit too central. But I remember there was just so many opportunities. There was one where obviously Jack played into me, and there was one where I think I flipped over someone's head, played it in, it bounced back to Forsey, and we blocked ourselves or something.
Yeah, that's it.
And I was honestly, so for that 50 minutes, I just remember I was just, in terms of me, I just felt free because I was like, we got 50 minutes here to try to lose. That my position went out the window. I was just, give me the ball.
I think that was the case for most of the time.
Honestly, I was so gutted because to make it into the third round, which we were so close to, would be like, I mean, one round was crazy enough, but if we'd have done two, it would have just been immense. And it honestly, like, stuff like that sets the club up, like sets the club up for years. Like obviously, what we did has done a lot for the club in terms of even exposure and stuff. But if we'd have got through another round, even it's just that extra level. And yeah, it was. I remember. I still genuinely every now and again I'll think about those chances and just think if only it had gone in. Yeah. If only that one I killed had gone in. But that's football.
Let's fast forward 12 months, and you're certainly finding the back of the net now. We've had a real good pre-season.
Let's hope, Ryan. I've only got two. I need to score in the league now.
I score at the club at the moment. I think
let's continue, but I need to start scoring something.
Well, last season, to be fair, you played the majority of games. A few goals, a good number of assists in your first full season for a fair while as well. So, getting to the present day, like I said, really good summer on and off the field for the club. We'll get on to matters off the field shortly. But like I said, playing well on the score sheet in a few of the friendlies. 2 great goals already in the Cup, as I mentioned, and Cymru League's Team of the Week. Getting one of those in early is always going to be a good start, as well as Kyle McCarthy, who's been announced this week. He's only just joined the club, straight into Team of the Week. So congratulations to Kyle. But we've started now the league. A few days ago up at Connah's Quay Nomads, where, again, you started alongside Ben Amoun up top in our 1-0 win. Like you said, you must be really excited for the rest of the season then.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say, like last year was, okay, yeah, obviously played an awful lot of football, but didn't really end up going as we wanted, I guess. And like you said, I may have had a lot of assists, but obviously the goals are ultimately what people, obviously assists are good, because that's what, it's actually crazy, because people always say to me, goals and assists are what matter, goals and assists are what matter. And never in my career have I ever failed to get loads of assists, but still people say that to me. So I know that the goals are what get people noticed. Because I remember people have said to me before, when I've had an awful lot of assists at place, and they go, goals and assists, Dan, goals and assists. And obviously, I just need to accept it. Like, yeah, I agree. But I'm thinking in my head, I do get the assists in all fairness. But the goals definitely do need to come more. And I'm hoping this year now I get a lot more goals. But yeah, like you said, we've got a really good squad this year. And so hopefully, obviously, we're all itching for Europe again. That's ultimately the goal. Like, we want that feeling again. And so, yeah, hopefully I can be a big part in hopefully getting us there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's great to see you and the squad doing so well. I was all the way home from Flintshire on Sunday evening, I had a big smile on my face. It's a great start, away to last year's runners-up, picking up all 3 points. I was buzzing all the way home, and we'll talk about this coming weekend shortly. But I mentioned off-the-field matters. It's been going well for you too. You've recently started studying your UEFA A licence with the FAW, alongside a number of ex-professionals there. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But you've also been announced recently as the club's new academy technical lead. Congratulations. I'm sure as we've discussed over the last 45 or so, your experience in the game is going to be massively helpful for the youngsters coming through our academy, which, to be fair, is going through a bit of a transformation at the moment. Almost we've pushed the reset button and are changing things up. So tell us your role, Dan. What does it actually consist of doing then?
Yeah, so like you said, it's in the club, the academy is in like a transition period, should we call it, and obviously Becky does an amazing job of, organising everything and getting the academy where we want it to be, etc. But what I just kind of am coming in to hopefully do is offer that kind of footballing side of things in the building, if that makes sense. Like, obviously you've got Tony and Wagyu with obviously us at first team, and so that obviously takes up their time, and obviously because they have an immense knowledge to add. But obviously I then hopefully can instill some of my experiences into the academy and kind of Pembrokeshire's, as we see in the first team, like there's so much talent, and it's just, you want to almost give, especially now, like in all fairness, like I'd say the Welsh Prem, like even like speaking to like, let's say like Jazz and stuff, or players who were here years ago, like the Welsh Prem's on the up, like standard wise, everything. And ultimately, like players, you understand they want to play it. Like, they think that, if you're not in Swans or Cardiff Academy, like there isn't a career in the game for you. That's like, it's almost like we need to change that stigma, because you'll get a lot of players who, as we see, like are coming from 21s teams at Swans and Cardiff and like playing in Welsh Prem, or even sometimes even not, if anything. So like technically, like whether you're at Swans or whether you're at Haverfordwest, like some of them all end up at the same place. And quite often, in fact, people at Haverfordwest, if you come through here, you'll often get noticed more at 18 playing in a first team in the Welsh Prem than you would as an 18-year-old at Swansea. And so it's kind of, I'm kind of quite passionate about like changing that stigma of like, just, you don't have to be in like Swans or Cardiff Academy to progress in football. You've got Harry John, you've got Yuri, like Jacob. I'm just like, they all love their football, and it's like the Welsh Prem's going in a more professional direction. Like there is getting Haverfordwest early, and that's also a pathway for some form of career in football. And who knows where the Welsh Prem will be in. I mean, I talk about the Irish League. Like the Irish League 10 years ago, I'm sure there would have been kids at 12, 13, 14 thinking that playing in an academy in Ireland isn't going to get them a career in football. But now, all of a sudden, 10 years down the line, you've got, if you're an academy player and you break into the first team at Shelbourne or Shamrock or St. Pat's or anything like that, like you are a professional footballer. And who's to say the Welsh Prem doesn't get there? And even if it doesn't and it stays as it is, it's still a very like good level of football for kids to be playing in. And ultimately that comes from starting in the academy and changing that stigma of Haverfordwest isn't just a Sunday league club. Like it's a club where kids like should pick over their grassroots. Like, yes, I understand they love their grassroots and stuff, but it's about changing that stigma of, it's not just, Haverfordwest isn't just, it's fun and then we wave bye-bye at 18 because there's no career for you. No, like you can either push on at 18 and get into potentially professional clubs. I mean, we see the people getting moves in the Welsh Prem now. You get seeing mid-20-year-olds getting moves into the Football League. So who knows what if an 18, 19-year-old does well, where they're going to go. And it's about kind of getting people wanting to put that Haverfordwest shirt on. And then, as you say, that will only help the first team, only help the club. And so it's about, me, Becky, Alric as well, and everyone else involved here, kind of getting out into the community, getting me giving, as being on my coaching license, I can hopefully pass on my experiences to the coaches within the academy and, kind of oversee stuff like that and see how they're coaching so that I can kind of, with the people I've worked under, like, I can say what worked for me personally and what could potentially work for the players here. I'm a big believer in what kind of Warren Joyce and
like he was probably the first person who really, really instilled into me like that hard work, like gets you so much. Like you cannot lose from working your hardest. Like I see a lot of people like academy players who think they've like made it at like 18, and Warren Joyce kind of instilled, and then obviously since then all the managers I've been under, you kind of see that hard work is what gets an attitude. Like from what I've seen in terms of like senior pros, whether that's at Salford or like even people who I've been on like the B license or stuff with, like I work with Johan Giroud on the B license. Obviously he's played in the Premier League for 10 years, played for Swiss national team. And what you notice about the ones who get to the top is they don't need to prove anything to anyone. They're just down to earth, like people. And yeah, I don't think in terms of like to young lads coming through the system, there's literally nothing you gain from not having the right attitude or giving it your all. And I'll always like work hard for someone who works hard for me. Do you know what I mean? And like, honestly, there's so many players who don't have the ability but get further than the ones with ability. And I know it's such a cliche thing to say, but like I remember when I was a kid listening to this exact thing and seeing all these quotes in this, I used to think, oh yeah, but so-and-so's getting an opportunity because they think he's really good or whatnot. And it soon catches up with them. Like at some point you will like, never does someone get to the top or like maximize their potential unless they're giving it their all or like they're working hard. Because like, don't get me wrong, like you'll see in like academies and stuff, sometimes like people will get contracts and stuff and like they may, you know, they may not have like attitude or whatever. But ultimately when they're then called into a first team dress room and they have to perform week in, week out, and they're giving a manager reason to not put them in the team or whatever, they're eventually going to fall by the wayside, no matter what the ability they have. It can get them through where the results don't matter. But like the one thing I'll say is like I'll always stick by like someone. Obviously, you know, I'm not gonna obviously like ultimately the play-in comes into it too. But what you want is a base of everyone has these values, and then you can actually judge people off their football. But quite a lot of the time, people don't actually give it their all, and it's frustrating. And like people think, oh, he's just saying that because everyone says that, but it's so true. And I've never seen anyone not get to the top, but maximize their potential. Say, there's players who will never get to the top. That's the reality of it. But there's players who can maximize their potential. And I'm telling you, like for a fact, I mean, I'm sure you watch it, but there's players in like Football League or even like our league who you may look at and think, oh, he may actually in like a possession or like a passing drill, like he may not look like really, really good technically, but ultimately that's not what all football is about. Like there's so many other attributes of like, you know, when people say, oh yeah, but how good is he at actual football? Well, it's like, what is actual football? Like there's technical ability, but then there's so many other things which come into it. I mean, for instance, in our league, like how often do players actually get to, like on a bobbly pitch, like say Carnarvon away? That's, like, how can you show your technical ability? Like technical ability will get you
so far,
but without other stuff, you'll never be able to. You know, there'll be a reason for someone else to be putting the team ahead of you sometimes, and that's like the way of I kind of say it to. From what I've learned, obviously, I need to like saying to kids like just work hard. It's so easy to say, but like I'm not going to lie to you as well and say football doesn't matter. But ultimately, if you're in the building, you're in the building for a reason. It's like I coached at Swansea as well. Like if you're in Swansea Academy, you have that some form of base talent. Yes, some players are more talented than others, but there is like that scope within where there is talent, and some are at this end of it, some are at this end of it. If you're at this end and you're working hard, you'll go here. If you're at this end and working hard, you'll catch up with these and go beyond. And it's, I from what I've seen under the managers I've worked under, particularly like Warren, like, and if you make each player better. So for instance, I'd say about like Damien Duff, obviously, unfortunately, I wasn't able to really do much under because I was injured most of the time. So it's a shame really because he was obviously my position and could have really, really like pushed me on. There's people who signed at the same time as me who are now playing League One, Scottish Prem, like my age. And one thing which I think everyone would agree is that every single player who walks in that building he signs will walk out a better player. And if you're doing that, you can't go far wrong because your team will naturally get better. Like you can only, obviously, people can only get so far, but if you're maximizing everyone's potential, you're bound to have a successful team.
I love that. Your values and your ethos coming into it, and you know, and you're pretty early in your own coaching career. However, you know, like we've discussed over the last hour or so, you've got huge experience. You've learned from some great leaders and experienced campaigners. So it bodes really well for the academy going forward, I think. How then, if I'm a parent, a guardian, or even a young player in Pembrokeshire listening to this now, how can they get involved? What is the process to getting into the academy?
Well, that's like we have, well, for instance, even tomorrow we have summer camps, and like all they have to do, I think, is just get in touch with the club. If they want their kid to come here, get in touch, and like we can see them then. If they want to come in on trial, like we can then see them, and we want that like competitive environment. But ultimately, like if someone wants to come in on trial, like of course it's why would we turn down seeing people? I remember when we were with when we were with Warren Joyce when all the signs at the start, we literally had, I think, probably almost 150 trialists, because like there's all this of like in football, it's like, oh well, he the agent gets them in or whatnot, but genuinely what Warren is, he just literally, I'm pretty sure every single player who didn't have a club probably stepped foot into a trial at Salford at some stage, but ultimately he then sees everything he has to offer. And so like just getting in touch, and we're going to be good, like we are going to be going around to schools and stuff when they're back in and giving out like contact information, etc., but get in touch, come in, and then you could potentially be part of hopefully what's going to be an exciting era with the club.
Definitely, the future's bright, as they say. Love it. I look forward to seeing how that all develops, and good luck to anybody who's in the academy or coming into the academy over the course of this season. Back on the first team matters then. We'll jump back on the first team matters, and it's been a while since I've asked this question. I'm looking forward to seeing some of your answers here. Time to roll out the dream Bluebird question. There's always somebody put out with this, but you've been nominated yourself a number of times, whether it's for right foot, for technical ability, I think is your most nominations received for. But time for your pick now then. So 6 categories, and they're all focusing on the answers have got to be from players you've played with at Haverfordwest County. So right foot, left foot, aerial ability, technical ability, the talker, and a footballing brain. So we'll start, as we do, with the right foot. Who's got your right foot?
Oh, see, right, I'm gonna have to. I haven't prepped this one, but I'm gonna have to give it a think. There's a few you can pick from, and I'm gonna just go with as well. It depends on how I interpret the right foot. I'm gonna go with how they strike a football. That's what I'm gonna say. Someone might have more tricks, someone might be better at dribbling. I'm just going to go right foot as purely how they strike a ball over long distance, how they pass the ball, etc., etc. And I probably have to at the moment. And in fact, in this pre-season particularly, I remember I was actually, when I was out on the left wing back, actually in game, I rarely do like analyze other players' like performances. I'm so like focused on obviously just getting the job done. But I remember it was a pre-season game, and Sheppy was pinging balls out to either me at right, like left wing back or the right wing back, and they were pinpoint precision. And I remember thinking, that's decent, that. And so, yeah, I'll probably have to say Sheppy for the right foot, for ball striking. Other people maybe they're dribbling, but right foot, I'm interpreting Ryan as ball striking.
That's fair point.
I'm going to go with Corey Shepherd.
Okay, that's fair point. Left foot now, and this is an interesting one because there's a number of new left foots have walked into the doors this summer. So traditionally, it's been either Abu or Oscar to take your pick from, but there's a number more who've joined us who've done well, but I'll leave it with you. Open to choose whoever you wish.
You know what? I'm gonna save one for later because I'm not gonna pick the same person twice.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go because, in all fairness, like I played with Alric when I was about 10, 11, and I'll be honest, I forgot like how he was as a player because I've generally not seen him in so long, and like as everyone knows, the player you are at 10 is definitely not the player you are at 23. And Alric, I thought centre half, is he going to be a no nonsense? And he is pretty no nonsense, but I tell you what, he wraps a good pass in with that left foot. I've noticed that he's very, in terms of like striking, he'll find the right foot with his passes a lot. And so if he's wrapping it into a pocket, he knows he'll wrap it with the right weight to the right foot. And I remember that's another thing which I actually noticed in pre-season. I was like, Alaric's actually got a very tidy left foot of like wrapping into pockets and hitting diags. Whereas, you know, I maybe thought at 10 years old, you know, maybe he's just a clamper. I'm just going to snap it, hook it down the line. But in all fairness, he wraps in some really good passes. So I'll give that to Alaric. He'll be very happy with that. He's in the other room now. He might be able to hear me and he'll be jumping up in his chair.
Yeah, he will be happy with that one. Love it. Aerial ability.
Can you really name anyone other than Jenks? Oh, I love Jenks, and I tell you what, he's got some header on him. And by the way, some player. I rate Jenks very highly. I've got to give that to Jenks. I mean, who doesn't give it to Jenks, right?
Yeah, it's close, and it's, you know, he is elite level, you know, at Cymru Premier for heading the ball, defensive and offensive. But, you know, again, this year with the recruits we've had come in to go, as well as Luke Tabone at centre half, Greg's come in with height. Alaric's decent in the air as well, I must admit. How much he's paying us for all these nice comments, I don't know, but yeah,
I know. I'll get the 10 off Jenks tomorrow.
Technical ability.
This is what I say for. I'll have to say Abu. Had to put Abu in there somewhere.
Yeah.
He was my little left side partner in Europe. You know, me on the left, him on left back. I get on very well with Abu, and you know, he'll give me the 10er tomorrow as well. But I'll put him in technical. I have to. He's a very, very good player, is Abu. You know, more technical on the left, but he won't be annoyed at me for saying that. You know, I don't really see him use his right that much, but he's got a very good left foot technically.
I was going to say.
He can pass it, he can dribble, he weaves through players. As we've seen, he's got a free kick in his locker. He's for someone, because especially at his height as well, like to command the pitch as well as he does on that left hand side, and to be the best left back in the league. Really, I'd even put him above TNS players, to be quite honest. Yeah. Like, he is a very, very good footballer.
Mate, when your left foot's as good as Abu's, you don't need a right foot. It's just
we don't need to right foot technical. We won't talk about him for
that. Final two then, the talker.
I imagine quite a few people say the same one for this as well. They probably say Dill, do they? Dill, obviously, I'm trying to think, is there... Only because I'm I want to give some other people some credit, you know?
Yeah, I like that. Who's a surprising talker?
I'll tell you what, right? Since coming in, and again, this is only off a couple games, but I really like his temperament on the pitch in terms of, like, when you talk about talkers, there's, you sometimes have screamers who, like, they can sometimes shout useful information and then also sometimes will just shout, which, like, that's fine, but some play, whereas, to keep your head really coolly, and don't get me wrong, sometimes shouting is needed, but what I've noticed is Kyle McCarthy's temperament of how he talks to people is, like, very... Yeah, he's almost like, when he talks to you, like, it's... I've got on well with Carl since he's come in, and he talks really well on the pitch, especially I've noticed with, like, some of the young lads. He's not having a go at them. He's, like, saying he'll maybe tell them something and then say, maybe after that, he'll, like, what they could have done better and why he's telling them that. He's very, like, good with the way he speaks to people, if that makes sense. He's not just a talker as in the loudest. He's giving good, useful information. So, of course, I'll mention, obviously, I'll put Dill up there with it, because obviously Dill is a skipper, a very good skipper, but just so that, we shine some light on some other people, I'll give it Kyle McCarthy.
I love that.
Far. We're 2 games in. We're 2 games in, but he's been
I must agree, from what I've seen from the sidelines in training and match scenarios, I completely agree with those sentiments that, he's going to bring a lot of experience. He's played for Met for, I think it's like 8 to 9, 10 years even. Last season, I think, bar a couple of times he was brought off late in the game, he's consistently in that squad and been very successful as well in the club's rise to the Cymru Premier. So he's been another great addition. I wondered who you were going to say when you were picking a new signing, because I've noticed Ben Amoun is vocal. O's, I've spent some time talking to, is very mature and experienced in his way. And obviously we've spoken about Alaric. And I must mention Greg as well, because Greg... I remember Greg, as a relative youngster at the club, went away, ended up, he's been captain at Carmarthen for a couple of years. He's come in and I said it on the commentary on the weekend, really matured on the field. I explicitly say on the field he's matured. But I've seen him, he's got a real good presence and that leadership trait. So, yeah, there's a lot of core leaders in the group now.
it's like you say. I mean, you look back. Obviously, Carl McCarthy was he captain at that last year?
Well,
Greg was captain at Carmarthen. Obviously, we've got Dill, who's obviously our captain. Shep, who's obviously is captain at the moment whilst Dill's out. That's 4 then of the players who are all captain experience. You know what I mean? Like they all are capable of commanding a team. Like, well, as you can see, like Met have been so successful for the past few years. So to have that core in the group, like of proven leaders, like it can only be good, really.
It is, and it's rubbing off on some of the youngsters. You know, the other new addition, Kyle Kenneford, he's come in from an academy. I remember Kyle as an 8-year-old. He went off to Cardiff Academy, has come back now. And again, you can see he's got that, you know, he's taken it to a duck to water. You know, he's come into the squad of older guys. He's been perhaps stuck with his own age group for many years. But again, has seamlessly come in and I think is really a good prospect for us going forward. So,
yeah, definitely. I mean, like I was saying earlier, you see a lot of people struggle with that transition from 21s to men's as well. Partly as well, I'd say, because of attitudes of a lot of 21s players who maybe think that they've made it, which it's far from the truth. And so when you come into these environments, it's about being of a temperament of like Carl, where you realise, no, hold on, like I'm not going to come in here and act as if, you know, you're above the level. But and when you do that, you end up then showing your level is, you can see where they've come from, if that makes sense. Like, so for instance, if you come in and you adapt to the environment and you don't come in like naive thinking, oh, it's you know, Haverfordwest, like that's not Cardiff City, for instance.
Yeah.
But if you quickly realise that, because I mean, what these people is that a lot of the people here have, like we've been at the levels that they've been at. So it's like, if you come in and think that you're above it, when we, having been at that level and being here, know that, I mean, it's a much tougher environment being in first team at Haverfordwest than it would be at 21s at Cardiff. So like, for people then when people do come in, if they ever do come in like to first team environments, and they think that by coming from the 21s of a higher club, and they think they're above it, it will quickly shows that no, hold on a second, like we've been where you've been, and we realise that this is a lot tougher than that. And so the players like Kyle who come in and just really take to it, and they don't come in with an ego, they're the ones who end up then pushing on. Whereas you see a lot of 21s players who will go in, think they're above it, have the wrong attitude, and they just spiral downwards.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think we've had one instance of that over the last few years. We won't name names, but we'll move swiftly on. Football in Brain, Dan, the final one of our dream Bluebird now then.
Rio Dyer? No, I love Rio. But he don't half get some stick for, mind you, that's football in Brain. He don't half get some stick for his off-the-field brain.
Quite right.
But I love Rio. But unfortunately, he won't be getting the brain category for me today. He could, you know, he got close on some of the other ones, like technical, and he's got a great right foot. But yeah, certainly on the off-field brain, I'll leave him out of the equation. He's slightly more intelligent on the pitch, obviously. Otherwise, you don't get to this level without being slightly intelligent on the pitch. But yeah, I'll probably have to say, I guess a lot of people probably say Jazz for this one. I mean, it's hard to say what is a footballing brain. I guess he's got the best experience. He can pass on the best information. When Jazz speaks, people listen because they know it's coming from a place of, he knows what he's talking about. He's seen it at the top level. I mean, I guess I probably have to say Jazz. I will mention, I think I did actually watch Jazz's episode for this, and he mentioned, I think, Harry John for this, didn't he? And I will mention, because I've not mentioned Harry John yet, and I do love Harry John. I really like Harry John, and to be his stature, and I mean, on the weekend, for instance, to be able to move around players in the way he is, when if he doesn't do that, he could probably quite easily get pushed off the ball. So to be able to get yourself in positions and take your first touch, and I could mention for the technical thing, to be able to get out of situations which other people his stature would maybe struggle to do, you have to have a pretty decent footballing brain for that. But I will give it to Jazz, but an honourable mention for...
Love that. And
Harry John.
You mentioned Harry. He's had a great pre-season. He was excellent against Carmarthen. Mark Jones, the Wales C manager, was there, and I had a brief chat to him, and he said, the boy of John, as he called him, the boy of John has been some player there this afternoon. And again, against the Nomads, a physical Nomads midfield. There was one point midway in the second half, not long before perhaps we already scored the penalty. But
he danced around a couple of them.
He got out of danger, and it was phenomenal. And then what was quite clear, he got the foul. He almost waited for the contact. The guy was chasing after him, and we'd got rid of. And he's coming of age. I think it's going to be a big season for Harry John. I'm excited to see where it goes. But what you've picked it down, that's some player, an excellent player. And I think we could do with that player in the squad this weekend when we head north. We go up to another away day to the Oval in Caernarfon, who will obviously be a little bit fresher than us after their European adventures. They've had a few weeks break from kicking off their league campaign due to TNS's still being in competition in Europe. So Richard Davis's man will host us on Saturday evening. There won't be a Bluebirds Nest live audio commentary this weekend due to the game being on Scorio's digital platforms, I believe. So if you aren't making the journey up, please do support the boys online. I'm looking forward to that one. Dan, good experience for you last year at the Oval when I think you put Rio in for the winning goal.
Yeah, I remember it was a very, very, very tight game, and that was a 6-pointer. I remember we were chasing Caernarfon for that top 6, and that was when we put together a good run of games. And I remember that was probably the most crucial one of them all to push into that. Obviously, end up being Penabont last game of the season, was probably the decider. But winning that game put us in contention. I remember we had a really good few weeks then, didn't we? And I remember because we were knocking on the door the whole time. I think that was it. Harry Thomas in goal saved a couple. I remember I was in a couple of times. He saved them low to his right, and I remember thinking we were on top on the day, and I was thinking we have to get something out of this. And it was a bit like I could probably compare it to last year's Connors Key on the weekend, where you go away from home. It's just a professional performance. Not too many slip ups, but just you wait for the moment. Exactly like we did on the weekend, and exactly like we did Connors Key. Obviously Connors Key, last year was a bit more quick fire 3 goals, but it was very similar to, I guess, Sunday's performance in that you kind of wait out and then you score probably around roughly the same time, I imagine, wasn't it? Around on the 70th minute mark, and then you just have a professional performance to see out the game. And we can hopefully repeat that, and hopefully I can maybe score and assist this time.
That'd be nice. That would be nice.
That's obviously the goal, but no, hopefully we put together a good performance and carry on the momentum from Sunday, because obviously it's one game at the end of the day. We can't get ahead of ourselves. I mean, it was Connors Key away, and it's seen as a big win, but you don't get any more 3 points for beating Connors Key as you do anyone else in the league. So everyone else who won their games is in the exact same position as us. So we just need to go up there and back it up with another good performance, because 3 points is 3 points, no matter who you get them against.
I love it. Your wise words for a young man, Dan. It's more of the same this weekend from you on the pitch, and it's been great to chat with you. I'll give you back your time. I know you're on duty at the club today in your academy role, so I'll leave you get back to you. But it's been great to chat, mate. Look forward to seeing how much success you and the boys get this season. But good luck on Saturday, and I'll see you soon.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.